Good morning. I'm Rob Karr, and it's my privilege to serve as President and CEO of the Illinois Retail Merchants Association. And I'm proud to be joined today by the Chief Law Enforcement Official of the State of Illinois, Attorney General Raoul, as we announce the next step in our partnership to combat organized retail crime. ORC is an insidious crime, and often it has tentacles spreading into other areas of illicit activity. And while organized retail crime has been an issue for many years, over the last 5 years, it has grown over 60%. And we have all borne witness as Illinois has become a national epicenter. Despite the hundreds of millions Illinois retailers spend on security every year, we see the result of this unchecked plague everywhere. We see it in the headlines in our news feeds. We see it when we go to the store, and everyday items like toothpaste and razor blades are behind cages, or a coat we want to try on is tethered to a rack. And it is not a victimless crime. While the Mag Mile and high-end stores have captured headlines, neighborhoods and retail corridors throughout the state have been victims. But it isn't just faceless stores that are victims either. There are many victims of organized retail crime. The retail clerks who fear coming to work or have experienced ORC are victims. Consumers who worry about visiting their favorite brick and mortar store are victims. Commuters and tourists who worry whether it's safe to return to work, downtown, for example, or to visit, are victims. The hospitality industry, such as hotels, restaurants, taverns, movie theaters, and others who rely upon visitors, are victims. And all of their employees are victims. Anyone seeking economic development is a victim. For the first time in my nearly 3 decades involved with retail, this is the first time that safety and crime has been one of the top 2 concerns as stores decide whether to locate or keep stores open. It even now appears in the annual reports of publicly traded corporations. And finally, I would encourage everyone who's listening or watching to take a look in the mirror. At the end of the day, all of us are victims. We're all victims because retail is the second largest generator of tax revenue for state government, and we're the largest for local government. Those revenues fund the services upon which we all rely, and every item that is stolen is an item for which no sales tax is collected, and that makes it much harder for government to provide the services upon which we all rely. In short, it has deprived all of us of a sense of well-being and stability. Everyone is, I think, tired of what we perceive as these individuals acting with impunity. And it is long past time to address ORC in the comprehensive, consistent, focused, and long-term manner required to effectively challenge those threatening our collective well-being. The Attorney General took the first step in the formation of his task force, of which we are a full partner. And today, in cooperation with the Attorney General, we're pleased to unveil a proposal to you that we believe will address it. The proposal specifically addresses ORC. It seeks to close the loopholes and outdated provisions in current law that criminals exploit to frustrate and invade law enforcement and prosecution. It addresses not only the means they are applying to steal, but the means of monetizing. It gives them nowhere to hide and seeks to dedicate resources to pursuing them. Specifically, we would address ORC specifically within the code as a clearly defined action. We would also deter smash and grabs and have specific provisions around smash and grab thefts, as well as thefts from the supply chain, such as trains and trucks, videos that we have seen, for example, in California, and we hope we do not have to see here. We would seek to reduce their criminals' ability to avoid prosecution by allowing any venue in which any portion of ORC is conducted to prosecute. And of course, the Attorney General would be granted new powers such as under statewide grand jury to prosecute ORC. We seek to provide dedicated enforcement, not only to the Attorney General for dedicated assistant attorney generals and investigators, but also to state's attorney's office, particularly in communities and jurisdictions that have been particularly hard hit. We have regulations in place for how people fence at flea markets and other places, but we also need to address online. So the proposal would also propose the adopting regulation for online third-party marketplaces, where some people are fencing their stolen goods, by seeking to adopt the Agreed Inform Act, which is also currently being discussed in Washington, D.C. We would hope to enhance public and private coordination statewide through all stakeholders. This collaboration is designed to provide real-time information and intelligence gathering and collaboration in addition to the task force that the AG has started. And we would require timely and proper notice to the victims of organized retail crime. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Attorney General of the State of Illinois, Raoul. Attorney General.
Well, thank you, Rob, and thank you to IRMA. I've long enjoyed working along with the Illinois Retail Merchants Association on a variety of good public policy. We all know that organized retail crime, and we've been seeing the stories over the course of the last several months, has increased across the country. And we cannot mistake regarding these crimes as isolated acts of retail theft of the sorts committed by ragtag, low-level offenders, if they are actually part of a larger organized crime scheme. Organized retail crime is not like your customary retail theft, and our laws should not treat them as such. They are not one-off thefts. These crimes are perpetrated by sophisticated criminal enterprises coordinating the thefts of many items of high value. Those items are often sold, resold, and the funds are often used to fund drug trafficking and human trafficking. I created the Organized Retail Crime Task Force because partnerships between law enforcement, brick-and-mortar retailers, online marketplaces are critical to addressing the growing organized retail crime problem. The task force has brought together these groups to share information and resources to allow us to identify and prosecute and hold accountable the criminal enterprises frequently behind these thefts and the individuals involved. Our goal is to disrupt the criminal enterprises that engage in organized retail crime and send a message to the criminal operations that we will identify them and end the destruction they cause to our communities. In December, investigators from my office, in collaboration with law enforcement partners, executed search warrants at several Chicago area storage units. We recovered thousands of items, including men's and women's clothing, electronics, high-end food items, and other items. This recovery of merchandise occurred as a result of communication between our office, the Chicago Police Department, and other law enforcement partners. But addressing organized retail crime cannot be left to law enforcement alone. Protecting communities from organized retail crime and the enterprises behind these crimes will require collaboration between law enforcement, retailers, online retail platforms, and the legislature. The Illinois Retail Merchants Association is an important partner in this ongoing effort. My office has been working with the Illinois Retail Merchant Association on legislation that will give law enforcement more tools to address organized retail crime. We must ensure that prosecutors have the resources and the reach needed to hold perpetrators of these complex crimes accountable. One way we can ensure that criminals do not avoid prosecution is by allowing our office to convene statewide grand jury to prosecute organized retail crime. By improving the ability of the Attorney General's office and state's attorneys to prosecute these crimes, we can deter these smash and grab crimes and other violent thefts we have become too accustomed to seeing on our daily news. Taking legislative action to enhance enforcement will also address supply chain thefts like those my office interrupted in December when we confiscated stolen merchandise worth over $1 million. In addition, online marketplaces need to step up. We need to make it more difficult for criminals to sell these stolen goods. They will need to verify who their sellers are. I look forward to continuing to work with the Illinois Retail Merchants Association and other partners in retail and law enforcement. Our coordinated efforts will improve the ability of law enforcement to curb these crimes and hold accountable the entities and individuals committing these crimes.
Are there any other questions for either myself or the Attorney General? Yes, please. Do you want to touch on that? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so retail theft, as we've traditionally known it, particularly if you think about the misdemeanor retail thefts that have taken place. Sometimes somebody will go into a grocery store and they'll take something that they'll need for personal use. We're not excusing that. There's still a violation on the books. But what we've seen is a coordinated effort to steal things, to resell them. And oftentimes these individuals who are committing these acts are used as mules, and they act in concert. So what we try to focus on is acting in a coordinated manner to steal items for the resale, and as opposed to somebody just stealing an item for personal use. There are other elements, such as we target on wireless devices that are fraudulently stolen, value cards. So oftentimes people will steal items, return them as if they bought them, and get debit cards. So we hone in on that. We also hone in on the supply chain theft. So people that may steal at a railroad facility from a rail car or from a truck, items that are in transit on their way to retail establishments.
Okay, we'll probably both take a shot for Dave. I think what is new or different is that we're recognizing what organized retail crime is, which is what the Attorney General has done, which is a broader, it's not a need-based where somebody's stealing a loaf of bread for just themselves. These are individuals or individuals acting in concert who are stealing for profit. For example, there was a couple that was recently arrested last week who had stolen over $2 million worth of goods. It wasn't a need-based situation. Or they're acting in concert, as the Attorney General described, to monetize it, which then funds other activities such as illegal drugs, human trafficking, or the like. It crosses to allow other enforcement venues to coordinate or to take primacy in prosecution depending whether an element has occurred in their jurisdiction, which criminals have taken advantage of to try to confuse and confound law enforcement and prosecution. So I think it recognizes that and takes it to a different level. I don't know if you have more to add to that, Attorney General?
Yeah, I'd just like to reemphasize something that Rob touched on, is that this type of crime doesn't restrict itself to a municipality, to a county. It crosses across jurisdiction. And so we try to address that, one, by giving my office the authority to prosecute under the Statewide Grand Jury Act. Two, by giving state's attorneys the opportunity to be able to prosecute even if some of the activity occurs across boundary. And we also know, our legislation may not necessarily address this, we also know that this occurs across state boundary, and that's why we're engaged on a national level with other attorneys general, and we've had conversations with the Department of Justice about this problem as a national problem. As Rob pointed out earlier, a lot of the focus has been on the mag mile and on urban areas, but it's happening in rural areas. It's happening all across our state and many states throughout our country.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.